Happy hump day.
Yes, happy hump day. So this is technically what should have been my due date, but Liz and I are obviously batch recording a lot of this, which is why I probably sound nasally in like all of our episodes for the next 2 months because Carson gave me a cold. But this was technically supposed to be my due date. They induced me on the 18th. So hopefully all went well.
Yes, it will go well. It's going to go great. Healthy baby, healthy mama. That's what we're praying for. So,
Yep.
All right. Today we're going to talk about digestive issues and how to know if you have digestive issues. We talk to women every single day, and I think there's a misconception around like if I'm not running to the bathroom or shitting my pants, I don't have digestive issues.
Or if I'm not diagnosed with something. I think like a lot of people think that they're like, they don't think if you don't have IBS or like if you don't have colitis or like something diagnosable, then nothing's wrong.
Right. We hear that a lot from people who have gone to gastroenterologist and, had a colonoscopy. Maybe they have a scope, upper GI scope, things like that.
We talked to someone on the group call yesterday, and I cannot even remember who it was, but they said that their friend went to, they got essentially colonoscopy. They scanned for ulcers. There were no visible ulcers, but she was vomiting after almost like there was some ridiculous level of heartburn or acid reflux that was going on from like everything that they consumed, but nothing showed up on a colonoscopy.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I don't understand is how do they not understand the levels of HCl and stomach acid and the importance of it? Because we have so many people who come to us that are on PPIs, and it's a very simple fix as long as you're controlling your nutrition too, to be able to get off of those things and use some more natural supplements to bring your stomach acid levels up. And we have a whole nother podcast on PPIs. You can go back and listen to that. But it just surprises me. Like if you're a doctor, you got to care about your patients, and if this person is so miserable that they're vomiting all the time and you're saying, well, there's nothing wrong on the test, then we got to keep digging further to what is causing these reactions, because there's a reason why she's feeling so bad.
Absolutely.
And it just makes me sad. Like I remember having my colonoscopy in college and they're just like, yeah, nothing's in there. You're good to go. I'm like, yeah, but I'm still constipated.
I'm not good.
I'm not good. See, I keep having all this shit stay in me for multiple days. Like I can't.
Which creates issues.
I need to go to the bathroom. And so we want to talk a little bit today around understanding what good digestion is, understanding the differences too between like bloating and what people commonly think is bloating, and kind of what the main drivers are behind that, as well as then talking about constipation. If you are chronically constipated, we're going to talk about things that impact that, how to know, and then, a couple of things that you can do to support your digestion. And first and foremost, I want to just say like, you need to be working with somebody individually. If you are experiencing any digestive issues, then you want to get back on track, because there's a lot of things that you do day to day that will impact these things that are very easily fixable, but you need to be working with a coach. That's why Becca and I do what we do. We've helped so many people get off PPIs, turn their digestive
Gut health
issues
is so
around.
Rewarding. It's such a rewarding thing to work on because you can like, people are living miserably and they probably feel crazy because you guys, unfortunately, gut issues that are diagnosable are like, you are sick. I will say IBS is heavily diagnosed because it's kind of a catch-all. If they don't really know what's wrong with you, but you're having like constipation, bloating, reactions to food, it's kind of like they slap on IBS. But things like colitis, things like Crohn's, celiacs, all of these things, you are sick
H. pylori,
when you
Candida.
are dealing with these. And we don't want sick. And we don't want kind of sick. Like we want optimal. We want you to feel optimal. And I think that there's so much possibility for that with the population. Like, unfortunately, the definition of constipation, according to the medical fields, is you're having 3 bowel movements per week. That is not normal, you guys. Having 3 or more bowel movements per week. I'm sorry, you're having less than 3 bowel movements per week is the definition. Not only is 3 bowel movements or less per week not healthy or optimal, it is actually damaging to your health and long-term health and organ systems within your body if you are not going to the bathroom more regularly.
So let's explain that just really quick. So when we go to the bathroom, we excrete things from the body. We excrete toxins, we excrete excess hormones, which get recirculated if we're not going to the bathroom regularly. This can lead to things like estrogen dominance. We also excrete excess sugars. If we are not going to the bathroom regularly, we are at higher risk for metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, cholesterol as well is excreted. And so we need to support the body's detoxification abilities. And one of those things is to have good digestion. You should be going to the bathroom regularly. You shouldn't be straining. They should be normal form stools. We'll explain more about that later. But if you are not going to the bathroom daily, or at least I'm going to say 6 times a week, because every now and then you might
go twice in a day and then you don't
right.
go the next day or something like that.
But that is essentially sitting inside of you. And this is where we start to see all of these other digestive issues arise, because that bacteria is fermenting in your intestines.
It gets backed up. Where do you think it goes, guys? It gets backed up, and then it goes further up your digestive system, which it shouldn't. And then it ends up with bacterial overgrowth because it's sitting there because motility is not well. And then you end up with bacterial overgrowth. And I will say, of the clients that we work with, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, is the most challenging gut condition to manage and heal, because everyone's situation is different. Everyone's body responds differently to protocols and treatments. And it's hard to diagnose too. It's very hard to diagnose.
Well, and then there's different types of SIBO, and then there's, controversy about the test. Are they accurate? Are they not? You just don't know. And then what would work for one person does not work for another person. And so it is very, very challenging. And so we want to get ahead of this, right? We always want to be one step ahead.
Yes.
We talk to our clients about staying ahead of hunger too, because we don't want, you face planning into all the foods that you shouldn't be consuming because you didn't eat for hours. We want to get ahead of this. So if you're experiencing acid reflux, heartburn, bloating, gas, periods where you're not going to the bathroom for a few days, or maybe you are kind of flipping back and forth between constipation and diarrhea, call that dumping syndrome, we need to right the ship, and we need to get your gut health in line and help you be able to break down, digest, absorb nutrients, and then excrete all of the things that your body cannot utilize out, so that we don't end up in a disease state or feeling awful. Okay. Yep. So let's dive in. Let's talk about bloating first, because I think that a lot of people think that they might be bloated, but they're not really sure.
And then a lot of people are bloated and don't realize that they are.
Yes.
There's a common misunderstanding, I think, in this and what it entails. So depending on the individual, yes, bloating may look different. But I think that the term bloating is often mistaken for water retention. They're different. Bloating is in reference to our digestive system. So usually bloating is related to food and digestion of that food. So when a person consumes food or throughout the day, it develops the feeling of your stomach or midsection being full or tight or gassy, sometimes visibly swollen, distended, we say. People can visibly look pregnant. And it's just uncomfortable in general. And it's a response to food. It's not a constant for the majority of people. It is not a constant. It's a initial response. I consider bloating, I'm in pain. It's kind of similar to me as a period type cramp, but it's in my stomach further up than my ovary area. And it's hard for me to stand up straight. It's very tight. It's very distinguishable. When compared to water retention, which for a lot of people is more systemic swelling. Or I think some people, if you've gained weight and your clothes fit tight, you're not bloated. You've gained weight, you've gained body fat, and you probably feel bigger. And so you think that it might be bloating. That's not bloating. I'm sorry, you've gotten fat. You've gained weight, and now you're uncomfortable.
Weight. Yeah. And here's the thing, it's not uncommon. It happens.
It happens.
People go through life and high stress times, and they don't realize that, their nutrition isn't in line. Maybe they're, eating a little bit more than they were before, and they think they might be doing better than they were, but they've gained some weight. Listen, we've all gained weight in different phases of our life. That is okay. We just don't want you to mistake it for feeling bloated and thinking something's wrong with you, because the intent of this podcast is to really help people who are actually having bloating and symptoms from foods that they're consuming, probably I would say within 3 to 6 hours after. Sometimes it can be longer for certain individuals, but again, there's a difference between that immediate reaction and response in terms of bloating, gastrointestinal issues, than it is for water retention. So let's think about water retention. As Becca said, it's kind of like systemic, right? It's all over essentially. You might notice that your hands swell, you're a little bit just puffier, maybe your face is a little puffy, your ankles, you don't see your ankle bones, things like that. Water retention can come on obviously throughout the time of the month for some individuals.
Absolutely. Normal.
Dang period. We want our period. We love our period, but gosh, I just wish that
it's normal to have water retention around your period. It's not unhealthy periods. It just sucks.
It just sucks to have that. Yes. But we can also have this in terms of, higher salt foods.
Yeah.
Maybe you go out to eat. Maybe you go out to eat more than you typically do, and you notice that you're starting to retain some water. There's a variety of reasons here. Typically with bloating, again, it can be like normal to feel a little bit full after, let's say, like overeating. Like you go out to eat, you have a really heavy meal and you feel like, oh gosh, I'm so bloated. Well, no, you just overate. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes, depending upon what you're consuming, you might experience a little bit of gas throughout the day. I very rarely have gas. The times that I do, it's typically because I ate the Brussels sprouts. I love my Brussels sprouts. I'm not willing to, they don't cause me as much issues as they did in the past, as long as I keep them in small doses. So I'll have a little gas, but it doesn't smell.
Totally.
And that's
It
fine.
is normal. It is very normal. You guys, we swallow a lot of air throughout the day. We have air that gets trapped in our stomach that usually comes out as burping. Like air passes through the bowels, which gets released as the gas. And it is normal to have gas throughout the day. It is not normal to have extremely smelly gas a lot. And you usually know the difference if you have experienced both. Like, I know when I have eaten something that is not right and ferments too much in my stomach, and I do not want to be around myself, and I feel bad.
You need to roll down those windows. You need to exit the room that you were just in.
Unfortunately, pregnancy causes this to happen a little bit more frequently because of how much it shifts things around. So there are a couple of things that like drive bloating. The two biggest things we want to touch on, the one that we mentioned initially, bacterial fermentation. Okay. So when we eat foods that our body does not digest completely, there are undigested parts that pass along into the large intestine, where most of our bacteria colonies kind of live. This can create excessive fermentation and gas. This can be driven by meals that are either too large or too dense in calories for our body's digestive abilities, which everyone's are different. A deficiency in digestive enzymes, which Liz and I talk a lot about. We use a lot with our clients, depending on the person and what situation they're in. But we naturally stop producing digestive enzymes in adequate amounts as we age, and then stress on the body can cause less production. Poor digestive health causes less production. And when we don't digest and absorb food very well, it irritates the digestive system. Or if you have an intolerance to food. And so in some cases, like we talked about, the small intestine is actually the driver of the bloating, which comes before the large intestine in the digestive system in the process. And sometimes bacterial overgrowth occurs in the small intestine, which is usually a result of bacteria accumulating in the large intestine and backing up into the small intestine. Okay. This is because of slow motility, or what we know of as slow digestion. Motility is basically the action of your digestive muscles pushing food down in the digestive system. So if you have poor motility, this backup creates excessive fermentation and what we know of as SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This is a bit more of a chronic condition. And to be honest, it's usually a main driver of like IBS, stuff like that. But that is one of the main causes of bloating is bacterial fermentation that happens because of usually slow digestion or undigested foods.
Yep. So let's talk about foods that can make this worse. Yeah. So eating habits, eating behaviors, the types of foods that we can consume can be a very large driver behind stomach issues, belly discomfort, bloating, gas, again, constipation or diarrhea. So eating habits that drive bloating. A couple of these are more lifestyle based and some of them more choices based, right? So number one is you're not chewing your food well enough. Like you're shoveling food in your mouth, giving it a couple of chews and then swallowing it. You're probably swallowing a lot of air when you're doing that as well. You're eating while you're distracted, or again, eating too quickly. So we talk a lot with our clients about trying to eat undistracted, because there's also a mind connection here, a mind-body connection that doesn't happen when you're eating distracted. It's like all of a sudden your lunch is gone and you're like, did I even taste that? Like, and now I'm not satisfied. And so maybe my cravings are coming on more. I want to eat more because I never actually slowed down to savor and enjoy the food. You're not drinking enough water between meals. So we recommend that you kind of drink your water separate from your food, because we don't want to lower the stomach acid levels or impair the digestive enzymes that your pancreas is creating when you are consuming food. So I would say if you want to have a couple sips of water with your meals, that's totally fine. But primarily you want to be drinking the majority of your water in between your meals. Again, eating large or oversized portions. Like we all know that feeling on Thanksgiving Day after you've overconsumed all of your grandma's favorite
This
foods.
is different for everyone, I'd say.
It is, yeah.
Because if you've been an under-eater for a long time or an inconsistent eater, you probably need to stick with smaller meals more frequently.
Oh, yeah. Because if you aren't used to, especially if you're incorporating more protein,
Or vegetables.
Need to slow down, chew those things very well. Give your body a little bit of support. Like, you got to think about, like, the food that comes into your body is basically going into your stomach, which is a bath of stomach acid.
Yep.
And that is what breaks down and helps your body digest and absorb foods. So it's going to be much easier for it's going to be much easier for your digestive system if you can chew your food well, rather than putting a lot of workload on the gut to be able to break that down.
Yep.
Other things that can cause irritation is carbonated beverages, sparkling water, kombucha. That's more of a fermented tea. Honestly, coffee for some people can cause
unfortunately
issues because of the acidity, which impacts the stomach lining and also the lining of your intestines. Eating an excess of spicy, fried, or fatty foods. So it's really hard when we're reviewing certain client food logs to nail down and pinpoint what is causing issues when we see that they're going out to eat a lot. And there's like a big combination here of inflammatory oils, fried foods again there, or just really highly flavored foods. And there's a lot of spice and seasonings and things like that, because some people are irritated by like cayenne, nightshades, bell peppers, stuff like that. Specific foods. Okay. So let's talk about some specific foods that, even though they're healthy, can cause issues.
Yeah. Cruciferous vegetables are probably the biggest ones we see. Even people with healthy guts, guys, unfortunately, I have a pretty good gut situation. I've been blessed. I've dealt with constipation, but it was more so of an under-eating, overtraining. And I've dealt a little bit with like slow motility because of all of that along my life, but I have a pretty good gut. Like I don't not tolerate a lot of things. I cannot have very much cruciferous vegetables. These are broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, onions. They are basically considered poorly digested carbohydrates and are often really difficult to break down for the body. If you think about it, these foods are rough. Like they're very dense in nature. They're technically roughage. Like kale, I would even throw in here. They're hard for your body to break down. There's just a lot that your body has to do compared to zucchini and green beans, things that are a little bit more water based that like are much easier for your body to break down and digest and absorb. So that's probably the biggest one that we see a lot of people respond to. Beans are another one. Beans and legumes are, again, a great source of fiber and a great nutrient dense source. But like a lot of people, unfortunately, because of the skin on beans, do not tolerate well because of the lectins that are included and the phytonutrients that are kind of like anti-nutrients. And so unfortunately, beans are really common. Dairy. Many people who have pre-existing gut issues or fermentation do not tolerate dairy products well. I'm personally a big fan of dairy for the nutrients that it provides, and the healthy fats and the probiotics that are naturally occurring in them. Unfortunately, though, if you have a gut issue, dairy tends to be a very common culprit.
It does. We see this a lot. And I think the quality of your dairy also makes a huge difference here. I know for me personally, there's only one brand of cottage cheese that I found that I can consume.
I know. I actually went to Target yesterday to get Siggy's yogurt because we ran out. And all they had was a Noosa whole milk yogurt. And I haven't tried it yet. And I'm nervous because I'm very sensitive to yogurts. And Siggy's is the only one that I've found that works for me. I have some
Siggy's you can have. Okay. But it's plant-based.
See, I don't like plant-based.
Yeah, she does like that. It's actually pretty good. But Noosa, my favorite, absolute favorite. If you're basic like me, in the fall, you got to try the Noosa pumpkin. It's so good. Yes, it's higher in sugar, so you don't eat a lot of it, but it's really, really good. Dried fruits can also be problematic. Seeds and nuts for some people, those can be really problematic. Peanuts, as much as we love peanuts, we love peanut butter, they are more of a moldy nut. Sometimes people are a little bit more intolerant to that. Dried fruits, going back to that one, it's just because of the higher sugar content. And if you have an overgrowth of bad bacteria in the gut, that ferments and feeds off of sugar and yeast.
Yep. So artificial sweeteners and sugar alcohols for a lot of people, unfortunately, be careful with protein bars, be careful with certain protein powders. That's why we love Top Notch so much, because they use stevia and they use very minimal ingredients with theirs. But like, unfortunately, they are metabolized by bacteria in the colon, and this can result in bloating and gas and diarrhea for many if they have pre-existing gut issues. So there's certain, like, I know Quest bars blow me up. I I get so bloated from them because the added fiber in them and the sugar alcohols. I tolerate pure protein bars and no cow bars. Okay. So like I've had to experiment with that. And then high amounts of vegetables. To be honest, when you're consuming a lot of vegetables, you have to be I think everyone is different. I would love for everyone to be able to consume 50 plus grams of fiber a day. There's a lot of people that just can't, especially if you have gut issues, especially like less cooked or raw vegetables too, because they're more fibrous. They're harder for the body to break down. So those are some big things. And then there's some lifestyle habits that I would say drive bloating: chronic stress, poor sleep. Whenever I sleep poorly, I wake up and I instantly feel bloated. I haven't even consumed anything for the day and I feel bloated because my body is stressed. It hasn't probably digested and absorbed food very well that night before, like inflammation. There's so many things that can drive it.
Yeah, well, you got to think your body is trying to conserve energy for other functions, like your immune function, heart pumping blood, things like that. Digestion is kind of one of the last concerns, when we're not sleeping well.
Yeah, no kidding.
Certain medications and supplements can also drive bloating. So prebiotics, antacids, aspirin, fiber supplements. We're going to do a podcast all about fiber supplements and just why we don't really love them. We want to get fiber from one ingredient, whole foods, ideally first, and which one that we would use in certain situations if we were going to use a fiber supplement, but definitely not, what is it, like Benefiber and those like $3.99 bottles at Target. Anyways, I digress. Multivitamins and then iron pills. So these are not problematic for everyone, nor are they problematic in every season. But when you are going through maybe, a gut healing protocol, or your gut is, like we always say, the gut is like a fire, right? Or an open wound, if you want to think of it that way. Sometimes these are just like putting alcohol on it, or, putting more sticks in the fire that we don't want to do. Eating too late before bedtime can be problematic for some people. Smoking, and then just being sedentary. So if you follow us on Instagram, you know that Becca and I both have talked a lot about blood sugar and the benefits of going for a short walk to help with blood sugar and digestion and bloating after eating meals. So we recommend 5 to 15 minutes if you can. Going for a short walk after meals can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. So we want to talk a little bit about constipation briefly, and then we're going to give like just a list of some other things that we consider not good signs of gut health or digestive health. So constipation is not only how we pass bowels, but how frequently. So I talked about, for example, the medical definition of constipation is 3 or fewer bowels per week, but bowels should be relatively easy to pass with minimal straining and feeling like you are completely emptying while pooping. This is something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to all the time, is like, yes, I think that there needs to be some level of strain to get past a bowel movement. There needs to be some small level of strain. You should not be on the toilet pushing as hard as you can to get a bowel movement out for like multiple minutes. Also, when you're done going to the bathroom, you should feel like you have fully emptied the majority of the time. We believe that you should have a bowel movement, and this is our opinion, once per day on average is what we shoot for. You should have a regular bowel movement. And sure, there's days that I don't go still. There's days that Liz doesn't go still. But
and there's days that we go maybe 2 or 3 times. Yes. But again, we get that normal feeling that we need to go to the bathroom. We need to poop. It's not an emergency. It's not, what's the word when they say like peeking out? Like, you guys know the feeling. You're going to clench like it's.
Or a shart.
That's not what I was thinking. I was thinking about okay, whatever. We're getting very descriptive on this podcast. I definitely don't want anyone sharting. That's terrible.
No.
And I think it's happened to everyone at some point in time in their life. But
I just, okay. Did you ever watch The League?
No.
Oh my gosh. So Nick and I love The League. It's so vulgar, but I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He was like the comedy character on The League, and he went to the bathroom in one of his friends' bathrooms. And he was like, "There's no toilet paper in here." And the guy's like, "Oh, hold on." He's like, "No, wait, I got it. I found this towel." And he was like, "Oh gosh, it's like peanut butter on a shag carpet."
Oh.
And that one line has scarred me for life around bowel movements. But no, you shouldn't be having like loose stools either. So we're going to kind of run through this list here of some things to look out for. Here's what I will say. Occasionally, these things can be normal. If you are constantly seeing these things, not normal.
Especially if you've gone on vacation or
if you're eating a very different diet than you normally eat for a few days,
Yes.
it can be normal to have these things.
Yes, because even when you switch from a standard American diet that is a lot of processed foods and just, shitty foods over to more of a one ingredient whole foods health diet, some people will have digestive issues for about a week or two as the gut kind of re-regulates. And then
higher protein, higher fiber usually drives issues with some people.
Okay, so other indications of digestive issues. So oily film on stool consistently can mean that there's an issue with your gallbladder, okay? So this can also be that it's impairing, like something is going wrong internally with your bile, impairing breaking down fats. And so it's showing up.
It is showing up as.
In like that film on top of like the water in the toilets.
Yeah. I see these as like, they look like little drops of oil. Is usually what we see. Loose stools, like I just mentioned. So loose stools I consider as watery, or like people will see like mounds of poop versus like a formed log of poop. It's obviously very descriptive, I know. But
you kind of want it to have an S shape too, because that's like your...
It should be able to be like kind of formed, but not like stiff.
So everyone is now to evaluate their poops. Please don't send us pictures of your poops.
I do not want to see pictures of your poop.
Evaluate
I see
your
so
poops.
much poop from my child all the time now.
You should also not have undigested food in your stool either, because that tells us that your body is not actually breaking down and absorbing the nutrients.
Other than like corn. Corn's an undigestible food.
Yeah.
It's normal to, and like some seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, stuff like that. Heartburn. Heartburn is not an esophagus thing. Heartburn is a gut thing. So heartburn, acid reflux, this is very much a digestive issue, as it typically has to do with the stomach acid level. When you have low stomach acid, you do not have the ability for your body and your gut to break down that food as well. That is why food feels like it's coming up. Okay. So nausea after eating is not normal. Excessive smelly gas. So like we said earlier, it's very normal to pass gas, guys. It's normal to pass gas maybe 10 to 20 times a day without it being smelly. It is not normal to have excessive, very foul, leave me alone gas. And then going frequently. So I would say 2 to 3 times a day going to the bathroom, like after each meal, can be normal. Beyond that is a lot.
Yeah.
That is also something that I look into.
Yeah, I think too, like sometimes like after a weekend or, whatever away, maybe you had a larger meal, you might go to 2 to 3 times one day and then maybe you don't go the next day. I think that's okay every now and then. But again, the basis of all of this is that we want to have normal form stools and be going most days. I would say at least 6 days a week. It's like one day here and there, especially around ovulation or your period, that's, different. Other signs though of poor gut health, we wanted to just briefly cover. We do have gut health part 1 and part 2 on the podcast from, I think, last year sometime. But gut health, people don't realize just how important gut health is to our overall health and being nourished, our ability to break down and utilize the nutrients from the foods that we are consuming. And so in turn, if we are malnourished, we're experiencing things like low energy, fatigue, interrupted or restless sleep. That's the worst. Like, we want you guys to be sleeping. We just talked about that being very important to healing as well. Dark circles under the eyes, blotchy skin, abdominal pain, again, high amounts of gas. And I just want to caveat here that this can also be from undernourishment, because we don't have enough stomach acid to actually break down, digest, and absorb the energy from the food, and so then we're undernourished. Okay, it can also be because we're eating like assholes, just putting it out there, being frank, and you're eating a lot of inflammatory foods and you're lacking nutrients. None of those foods that you're consuming that are processed or really high in pro-inflammatory oils are beneficial for your gut. It's like putting slug into the gas tank. And another reason here, and we do see this a lot, is because we've just been under eating in general. Like, if you're eating 800 calories a day and you're doing a lot of meal replacement shakes, like, you probably don't have a lot of waste to be excreted. And so you need to focus on being nourished.
And without vitamins and nutrient, guys, your body just doesn't function right. Like, if you don't have enough, of certain vitamins, certain minerals, we lack levels of potassium are off, and calcium intake, and vitamin C, and B vitamins. Like,
B vitamins,
you guys,
so
all of these are so important to the body. And when we don't eat enough, you don't get enough of these. We barely get enough of these even when you do eat enough, because of how lacking our food is in a lot of places. And so we have to understand that these things not only impact like your general health, they slow down motility, they slow down digestion. We end up a lot of times with less stomach acid, more bacterial overgrowth and fermentation because of slowed motility. Like, there's so many downsides to this stuff. And so we need to understand that under eating isn't just cutting calories. You're cutting nourishment and needs from your body that can have long lasting effects. So we want,
especially if you're eating those 100-calorie packs on Weight Watchers.
oh my God.
I'll never stop talking about that.
I didn't eat horribly when I underate. I ate pretty well because I was training. So I was trying to eat like very nutritious, but I ate so many freaking Brussels sprouts. I was gassy all the time. That, and I drank a protein powder for a really long time that I don't think meshed well with my gut. And I did not want to be around me during training sessions because I was drinking a protein shake while training mixed with Gatorade powder for like carbs. And I would be farting all the time, and it was so smelly.
You had the whey farts.
I had the whey farts.
Yeah.
I did, because I was sponsored by a company.
Sure.
And at the time I didn't know better because I didn't know digestion as well as I know it now. And I was so gassy all the time from it.
So there's definitely different types of protein powders out there and different types of processing with whey protein.
Yep.
Becca and I both have found that we can tolerate two companies pretty well. Both are very high quality, and they have digestive enzymes in them, which I believe is the only reason I can tolerate it. When I used a plant-based, I used to use Vega Sport or Run Everything Labs. Like Run Everything Labs, didn't have any digestive issues with it. I have had other plant-based ones that have caused digestive issues because of all of the different ingredients that some of those have. But if you're taking a whey protein supplement, we would just encourage you, like, please do not go to like Costco or Vitamin Shop and buy
like Trader Joe. Like, you guys, a lot of places have like store brand protein powders.
Yes.
They are not high quality.
You get like 5 pounds for $30. Like, that's not a quality.
No, it's not. There's a reason that protein powders, some of them cost $60 and some of them cost $19.99.
Yes.
Like,
so we like top-notch nutrition. There's no artificial ingredients. They have taken out 90% of the lactose in there. They have digestive enzymes to help with gut health, essentially, and absorption, because there's also different levels of absorption. So we like their top-notch clean. That is one. And then we also like First Form. And both of those are in the show notes. I tolerate First Form. I think you tolerate First Form pretty well.
I do it okay. I can't have too much of it. I have a tolerance level I've found with like certain dairies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we like both of those. But anyways,
First Form tastes so good.
It's so good.
It is. It tastes really good.
I've been doing the key lime pie after my workouts.
Ugh, that sounds disgusting.
No, it's if you don't like key lime pie, you wouldn't like it. It's actually really, really good. But
see, I'm a chocolate peanut butter. Give me that kind of taste after a workout.
Or it's the same way. He's like chocolate
or like cookies and cream, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. So as we kind of, wrap this up, we've talked a lot about digestion, some culprits, some things that, could be potentially root cause issues to gut issues, essentially, right?
And also, here's the thing, guys. It could be limiting your progress with weight loss and success, because if you are not digesting and absorbing food well, or if you have constant bloating, those are stresses on the body that can limit weight loss. So it's not just like, this is a problem because you don't feel well because of digestive issues. No, like, this can limit people in what progress they see physically. So we always attack sleep, stress, gut health first when we work with clients if there's something going on.
Yep.
And we wanted to talk about what normal gut health looks like, normal digestion. So you can kind of have an idea of like what we strive for with our clients.
Yep. So no extreme stomach pain, no bloating after meals. Very rarely, I would say there.
Yep.
Bowels are pretty much daily, as we talked about, with rare occurrences of skipping here and there. Even around our menstrual cycle, like, this is something we pay attention to, and we like a couple of different supplements for women specifically if they are, struggling with going to the bathroom around ovulation or around their period. We like to use Magnesium Calm. It's magnesium citrate. Day to day, we love to use digestive enzymes. I personally love Enzymax Pro by Apex and Genetics, and we give that to our clients because it's just one of those things that it's very beneficial. I've not seen anybody have adverse reactions. We create digestive enzymes naturally in the pancreas and in the gut to help break down carbs, proteins, and fats. And so sometimes we need a little bit of help and support. Also, if stomach acid is low, that one has a little bit of HCl in it to help bring stomach acid up. I use these daily, but I definitely use them more when I know that maybe we're going on vacation. Like right now I usually do 2 in the morning and 2 at night. I just forget at lunch. But if we're going on vacation, I'm very intentional about taking them like every meal, just because it's different foods that I'm consuming. But a healthy gut is essentially one that is able to digest food, and you're eliminating that waste material within 24 to 45 hours, essentially. And we want to make sure that, when you're excreting that, you have normal form stools. And so we're just going to, wrap this up with, if you want to, you can look up the Bristol stool chart, but a healthy stool ranges between type 3 and 4. It's like a sausage with cracks on the surface, or smooth and easy to pass.
If you wanted to know how to look at your poop, we just told you.
It's like a sausage.
It's like a sausage with cracks on the surface.
I love talking about poop.
Oh my gosh. Here's the thing. You have to normalize it. You got to normalize poop, because it is like we've talked about in the beginning, a lot of people don't realize that their digestive issues are not normal because they've dealt with them for so long, or because they are an extreme or something like that. So I hope that this was helpful. Now you can kind of understand. If you have any questions, obviously Liz and I are always happy to talk through things as much as we can. Reach out if you have any questions. If you liked this podcast, share it, let your other friends know about poop and what it should look like. Share it, subscribe, rate us, review. We always appreciate those things, and we will be back.